Welcome to the E-Rivers Go Team meeting, where we will follow the agenda as it's been emailed to you and publicly noticed. I would like to remind everyone that this is a meeting of the Go Team. Only members of the team may participate in the discussion. Any members of the public present are here to quietly observe. For members of the Go Team, please identify yourselves when you speak. I am pleased to call this meeting of the E-Rivers Go Team to order at 3:33 p.m. Our first order of business is to call roll. The Secretary, Ms. Sheriff, will now take one.
Here. David Dees. Erica Novello. Greg Smaller. Wendy Sanders. Here. Allison Nelson. Here. I'm here. Andy Smith is not here. No.
Early's here.
Early's on.
Yeah. Yeah.
Is she needed? Okay.
Yeah.
Anyways.
Here. The team will only be able to take official action if a quorum is present. Ms. Sheriff, is there a quorum present?
Six.
You have to have 7 to have the quorum?
1, 2, 3. Yeah.
Is it?
Okay,
Because I'm not a voting member, right? So it's 9 in total. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Oh.
Yeah, so I think you just have to have a majority, which would be 5, correct?
yep.
Yeah.
Okay. If there's a quorum, we are now able to move forward with our first order of business. Our first order of business is to approve the agenda. This was provided to you and copies are here. Are there any changes to the agenda? May we have a motion to approve the agenda? We need a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Paige is now here too.
Oh, good.
Hey, Paige.
There are no.
Hey, guys.
Any opposed, say nay. Any abstentions? Okay, we will review and approve the meeting minutes from our last meeting. The minutes have been provided to you. Are there any corrections? Hearing no corrections, may I have a motion to approve the previous meeting minutes?
A motion to approve meeting minutes.
A second?
Second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any nay? Any abstain? Okay, our first action item on the agenda is the 2025-2030 strategic plan development.
Yep. So that will be largely me. So, I think that the biggest thing for you all to know, and this was mentioned at our last Go Team meeting, is that APS has rebranded themselves, really. And as a part of that rebranding, they have recreated the next 5 years strategic plan. And so then the ask of Go Teams is to engage in a strategic planning process that aligns our strategic plan with the new strategic plan. So we're just going to kind of review what Atlanta has changed, just to make sure we're all on the same page. Speaking of Paige, you're able to hear us correctly, yeah?
Yes, I can hear you.
And see the presentation? Perfect, great. All right, so just to start out with, in terms of Atlanta's mission and vision, this is who they are. They're keeping it short and sweet. We are Atlanta's public school system, and our mission is to educate and empower Atlanta's students to shape the future. And then they've gone a little bit further and have come up with some strategic priorities. If that's going to bother you all, Allison, do you mind reaching around to that computer next to you and just clicking where it says, yeah, right there. Thank you very much. So as you can see in red, you've got everything that goes along with a community of believers, right? So our strength is our team, our responsibility is shared, our system is effective and efficient and effective. And then really Dr. Johnson's big push for the system is getting back to basics with a clear emphasis on instructional strategies that move students to where we want them. So that's strengthening our instructional core, making sure that we are using a whole child approach, caring for every child, and that we are sparking student curiosity largely through robust specials programming, as well as our signature programming, whether it be International Baccalaureate, like it is for eRivers, or STEAM, as it is in other places. So I want to give you just a few seconds to read then those bullets that are under those 6 strategic priorities. Anybody just have any noticings or wonderings as you're looking over APS's new strategic plan?
Sounds very promising.
All right, we will move to the next slide then. So when we look at that strategic plan, the district is using some very specific key performance indicators or KPIs. By 2030, they want to increase the percentage of 30. So everything is about increasing 20 percentage points. So they're looking at in the next 5 years, by 2030, they'll increase the percentage of third graders in ELA scoring proficient by 20 percentage points. By 2030, they'll increase the percentage of 8th grade students scoring proficient in math by 20 percentage points, and increase the percentage of students meeting at least one of the CCRPI college and career readiness indicators by 20 percentage points. CCRPI data has not yet, it's embargoed currently, so that data is not yet available to the public. So I won't have a lot of detail for us to go into when it comes to looking at that data and what that means. So here are just some of the different targets that APS has. And then I've also provided for you a fuller view of, oh, no, I'm sorry, I have not. I've given you North Atlanta and I've given you our KPIs so that you'll be able to kind of look at that and compare, which we're going to do a little bit down the road. So as you can see, some of the performance indicators that they're looking at and what their target is compared to what their actual is. So this is the process for strategic planning. As you can see, it's kind of divided up into 3 sections. The first being our defining our mission and vision and coming up with the strategic plan. And then picking our focus areas, our objectives, and which key performance indicators. So those 2 top parts of the triangle there are GO Team, is really should be the focus of the GO Team. Today, we're really only going to be looking at that very top part, mission, vision, and strategic goals. Then for management, the school determines what strategies we're going to use that will then lead to all the above focus areas. And so over to the right, you can just again see how that aligns to the APS strategic plan. So again, this is the GO Team's purpose. So here's just an overview of the strategic planning. I'll just let y'all read that to yourselves. All right, so today we're going to be looking at these three key resources, which I have provided you with hard copies of, and those that are joining virtually early in Page, you have those in an email that I sent to you this afternoon so that you can pull those things up. So again, just more information about the process. And to the right, you'll see kind of the cadence in which they are recommending. So at our first business meeting last month, we reviewed a good amount of data. Today, we're going to be looking more at data, specifically the school KPIs, and then also you all charged me with bringing back some data as it relates to our dual language immersion program, which we'll be reviewing that as well. Then we want to align our mission, vision, and purpose and confirm our 2030 goals, what we're shooting for in that time period. And then as you can see, our next business meeting will come up with the strategic objectives and then look at budget allocation and how we prioritize our spending to meet our strategic plan. They really want me to drive home, apparently. This is what we're doing today. We're reviewing data, aligning mission, vision, and purpose, and confirming those goals. All right, so let's kind of jump into the data then. So last time, one of the things that we looked at was just kind of overall where proficiency is. And we noted that there were some specific subgroups that really we wanted to focus our efforts on. And we were noticing that last year in certain areas, they did not perform as well as they did in the 23-24 school year. So I bring this up just because I think it's important to note these numbers. So when we're talking about ELA reading, and again, we're only looking at 3rd through 5th grade because they're the only ones that take the milestones. We had about 52.5% who were shown to be proficient and above in ELA. Only 48.4% in math and 45.8% in science. I do want to highlight, though, again, science was a huge growth year last year with all of our students and all of our subgroups growing in that way. So this is really great data to show the concerted effort that went towards science, and we'll be doing the same thing this year for ELA and math. So I bring that up again to highlight that our Hispanic students in particular, we saw backwards growth in both areas. Our African American students, we saw them making some gains in ELA, but going backwards in math. And our economically disadvantaged students are also a place where we want to focus, and our English language learners. All right. So one of the questions was looking at DLI. So what you see is all of our subject areas, ELA, math, science, and then it shows you the percentage. So I'm asking you to only really focus on the green right now, the percentage of students who were proficient in the DLI program versus the number of students that were proficient in the traditional programs for both ELA, math, and science.
What's the light green, dark green?
So light green is proficient, and then dark green is above proficiency, so exceeding the standards, essentially. And then down below, again, it's showing you very clearly where, what the number of students that we're talking about, the percent specific for each of those subject areas.
It's not EL.
I'm sorry?
It says not EL and not EL.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, English language learners. So we're looking at DLI. So like that top bar is English language who are English language learners, EL. And then so you see 7.8%, and then not EL is 85.9% of that are showing proficient, right? And then you can compare that to the not DL.
Okay. Not DL.
Right. So if you're looking at our traditional program and our English language learners, we have more of those students scoring proficient than in the actual DLI classroom, which is interesting, right? Because our focus really in those DLI programs is ESOL services.
Is it though in DLI?
Yeah, so all of our English language learner, I shouldn't say all of our English language learners, but the majority of our English language learners are in those DLI classes. Nicole is really our expert there, so if you'd like to ask her more about the kind of the logistics of
It seems like there's a
students.
big disparity upon the not English learners and their ability, their proficiency in the English language learners in all categories within DLI.
Within DLI.
Yes.
Well, and keep in mind too, because I think this is important to note. So when you're looking at the number of students, for instance, if you're looking at the not DLI ELA English language learners, you actually have less students, so they take up a higher percentage, if that makes sense. So like one student in a traditional classroom who's an English language learner is going to account for, let's say, 8% across the board, whereas because there's so many of them in the DLI program, those percentages are only one student will only be worth like 4% of the total score.
Currently, we have 77 kids that are EL served, or ELs in the dual immersion program, K-5. And then we just have 2 new, and then we have 19
Yeah.
that are in regular classrooms that are receiving different.
And
EL
that's K through
services.
5, so not even third to fifth.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry, I only know the
Yeah.
numbers of total, not
Mhm.
the breakdown.
Yeah.
I can do breakdown in kindergarten
Yeah,
as
but
of
there's
right
not
now, off the
like-
top of my head, otherwise I'd have to run up for everybody else's numbers, I do have them. For example, in kindergarten, there's 10 students that are in the DLI program, we have 0 in the rest of the kindergarten classes, which is unusual, but my numbers were low this year, testing, like almost half.
So, I mean, that's a really big difference between English language learners in DLI classes and English language learners in our traditional classes.
And the English side teacher is the one who provides the ESOL support.
It's just like, if you look at the science, it's a bit concerning that none of the English language learners were proficient in science in the DLI classes.
Yeah, because they're used to,
I mean, they do
their
their-
ELA in English,
Yeah.
but then the
Science,
the
yeah,
science is
is
done
in
in
Spanish.
Spanish
So unless
And that's
there's
a
a
big
bridging
ask.
going on.
without all the background. Yeah, I mean, if you don't know the
For
language.
example, like in a classroom I was in today, at DLI second grade, they were working on producers, consumers also. And the teacher the English side teacher was showing the students the words in English and in Spanish. Some were reciprocal words and some were not. So that was a good teaching strategy, and reminded her to keep doing that, but I don't know if that's.
But like on the actual
all the
test, of the
time.
fifth
Yeah.
grade test, one question is like a whole page and it's like the multiple choice there's like one word different in each, like that makes you decide which is the one that you want to choose. And like one choice is like literally like seven or eight sentences for just one choice. And you have to try to like imagine, I know we had a large group of kids who were in fourth grade last year, not large, but there was larger than we're used to, who were new to the country and were level 1 for English so that's the thing too. Like if you're at like a level 1 or 2 in your English proficiency.
And you come in fourth or fifth grade, you still have to take the milestones.
No, that's,
So that's like the challenges that we face. with
And
that.
if we're
Yeah.
not bridging and showing the kids, they're learning everything in science. I mean, they're learning all their science
Right.
in English. I mean, in Spanish,
Yeah.
excuse me, and then they're taking the milestones in English.
Which I think, I mean, one of the things that I found really interesting, especially looking at the top chart, is that there really isn't that much difference in proficiency between our DLI students and our not DLI students. And I think when I shared this with staff was also surprised, quite frankly, by that, because we do say all the time that, well, it's not fair, particularly for math and science, because those kids are getting taught in Spanish, yet they're taking the test in English.
So the bridging really helped our non-EL kids and DLI.
Yeah,
It helped them, but then it's not helping our ELs.
right.
Because it's too big of it's obviously not realistic.
Yeah.
If you're a level, you're not gonna,
Yeah,
a level
you're
2,
trying to
yeah,
do
there's
both,
no
even
way.
your-
Yeah.
Your
I
home
mean, I don't
language.
Yeah.
know.
Yeah. Cause we have children that,
Yeah.
they don't read their home language, let alone English, so.
Right. Right. So really kind of teasing out, right? Like when we look at these DLI, not DLI numbers, we just wanted to make sure that we were teasing out who of those are our English language learners and who were not our English language learners, because that is really the subgroup that we want to focus on and do more bridging with so that they are more successful on those end of year tests.
What is the legend on the side, less than 10? Yeah,
So if you happen to see a red bar, that meant there were less than 10 students that went into that percentage. So you're seeing all blue because we have more than 10 students that is measuring. There are some schools that don't have an ELL population or much of one. And so, they would get this same chart and they would have red scores.
correct. And so to further break this down, you do it by grade.
I can look and see if they have it by grade. This is all pulled from APS charts, APS graphs.
Ultimately, yes, one question I would have is, ultimately, like what would, after this is digest, then what would be the plan to address it, right? Even before that, is this a year to year? Are these variances similar from year to year? Is that just inherited with the program itself? Curious to see how that is, and then obviously look at what are the comparisons to the other schools in the cluster.
Yeah. So, if we go back to this slide here, obviously it doesn't go back any more than the year previously, but you can see, trying to use my mouse here. I mean, you can see right here, these English language learners, I mean, they're only 12% total proficient in ELA and reading. Only 19% proficient. And then you're seeing this difference, right? So obviously we didn't score as well last year as the year before that. In terms of going back further to see trend data, again, that's something that I'm happy to see if APS Graphs offers. When you're talking about how this compares to the other schools that are similar to us, I'd have to pull, I mean, Bolton really is the most similar to our demographics. And the only Bolton data that I've seen is their CCRPI data, I believe. But again, APS has comparative information from school to school.
I think it would be helpful if we could see the data, for especially with Bolton, since their
Mhm.
population is similar in nature, to see if they
Yeah.
also have similar issues.
Sure.
And if they do, then that helps, gives us like a basis point, or if they don't,
Absolutely.
then maybe they're implementing different strategies that maybe we could look into implementing.
Yeah. Keep in mind, though, the role of the GO team is really to set strategic priorities, not to set strategies, right? So that is something that the instructional leads have already been working on. You were in that meeting
Yes.
today, yes? So in fact, folks like Nicole, our instructional coaches, our IB coordinator, are already sitting down and coming up with strategies to try to address these needs. And I'm going to kind of go into where our target is as we are setting kind of our continuous improvement goals as well. So this is just another set of data for you to look at. This is map data. So this is showing you growth from fall to spring and whether they met their growth target. Again, what stands out to me is the similarities between the DLI classroom's performance and the traditional classroom performance. So then when we look at our key performance indicators, and I know that this is difficult for you to see on this screen, so that's why I've got you a hard copy. So when we take those 20 percentage points that the district has as a goal, the data team has extrapolated that, looked at where some of our key metrics are. And these are not all of the key metrics that are going into measuring Atlanta's progress on their strategic plan, but these are the ones that the elementary schools are really focusing on. And again, you can see the difference between where eRiver's current key performance indicator is for each of those metrics and the percent, the goal change to get us in line with APS's 20% gain. So I'll tell you, this was really confusing for me to understand, largely because if the district is saying that across the board, we're going to see 20 percentage points growth, I was having a hard time understanding why, let's say, this one, for instance, is only, they're only having us grow 10 percentage points from 28 to 38. And so my question was, well, why is that? Like, I thought it was 20% across the board. And largely what they're saying is that there are places in which we have exceeded APS's current standing. And so while APS as a whole is looking to grow 20 percentage points, for us, that is more of a strength than the district. So our goal change is smaller. What's funny about that is I look at those scores. So for instance, looking at students with disabilities, for instance, scoring proficient and above on end of grade milestones. We're only at 28% of our students, our special education students, scoring proficient. That is not a great number at all. That is cause for concern for me. But when you compare that to the district, we are way out in front in terms of where our students are. So that's why that change goal that they've given us is smaller.
Which one was that?
That was the subgroup proficiency students with disabilities. So if you go down the 2030 goal change, you can see the top two are like 20 percentage points, 26 percentage points, and then you've got that 10 percentage points. And there are a few others like that. Students with disabilities growth. Our kids really knocked it out of the park last year, students with disabilities and their growth measures. Ms. Giles, our special ed lead teacher, really does a fantastic job leading that team. And helping those students really just maximize their results. And so, you know, again, because we are so far ahead of the district, our target growth in our percentage points is less.
Oh, it appears that the current KPI, which is the school, right?
Yep, that's the current key performance indicator. So that's last year's milestones, or in kindergarten, last year's G-KID score. That's what that score is.
Appears that in every line it's the same as the current district performance.
But every line is the same as the current district performance. Must not be understanding what you mean by that.
So if I look at that column, which is the fourth column in the current district performance, so let's say the top line,
Mm-hmm.
the current KPI for E Rivers is 48.1, right?
Correct.
The district current performance is 48.
Okay.
So that is confusing to,
So it's the same.
thank you. No, it's not. It's a pictorial and it's really hard to see. So there is. Yeah, so there's actually a gray, there's a gray, a light gray line behind this one that you really can't see
Okay.
very well. You can see it better like here, right? So see how it's dark up to there, and then you've got, light gray, or, I'm sorry, you have the district behind in light gray, and then us over top of it, so that's why you've got that darker gray.
Okay.
So the other thing that you have in front of you, is the North Atlanta cluster as well, so that you can compare where we are relative to North Atlanta.
And that's all like, oh, when it says third grade, that's the elementary schools. Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
So-
And so if you look on the screen, the presentation that I'm displaying, I highlighted areas in
Yeah.
which E Rivers is lower than the North Atlanta cluster. Because I thought that was interesting information to have as well. So our third grade students in ELA, our subgroup proficiency for Black students, our subgroup proficiency for economically disadvantaged, our subgroup growth for Black students, and our subgroup growth for economically disadvantaged students. Now, I want to make note, nowhere in the KPIs do you see Hispanic students. You do see English learners. That's right, for the access. So that is not looking at how well they scored on the GMAS, on the milestones, or looking at MAP.
To me-
That is only on the access.
To me, that seems more fair because you're not supposed to be masterful at a language if
Right.
you're level one or
But
two.
access for those, I don't know if everybody, the access, test their, language.
Proficiency,
acquisition.
yeah.
Yeah, so again, that's what
Right.
we work towards as
Mhm.
teachers.
And can you talk a little bit about like how that's scored, meaning like what are the different scores that students are given?
So there's 4 areas: listening, speaking, reading, and writing. They don't take them all at once. They take one and then move on. They can score anywhere from 1.0 up to 6.0. One being, the lowest on the score, and 6 being proficient, and they're no longer need to be EL service. Really, they have to have a 5.0 composition score to not receive services anymore. But I mean, scores range, just depends on the student. And then, sometimes kindergartners are scoring at 2, and sometimes they're at 1.9, like it. Everything, you can have a 1.1, 1.2, all the way till it goes to 2.
So when it says typical or high access student growth percentile, like what are they talking about there?
Maybe, we have a student in, pick a student, 2nd grade. In 1st grade, they scored in all 4 areas. I don't know, let's go with 1.5, 1.6, like in that area. But then the 2nd year, they scored 2.8, 3.0, so they
Mhm.
did make a big growth
Mm-hmm.
in that certain area.
Okay.
whatever area that we're looking, listening, speaking, reading, and writing. And they must take listening and speaking before they can take reading and writing, based on what they get on those 2. Besides on what level we test them on reading and writing. So there is the process it takes a while. And speaking sometimes is lower for some students, only because I think it sometimes has to do with the technology that we're given to use the test, but, the main indicator for everything is listening. A lot of our students score high in listening, like 3 scores, even when they're in 1st grade, but then their reading and writing is.
Yeah, their production is
Well,
different.
it
The
can-
Yeah.
enrollment acquisition
Right,
process, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So I'm going to just go back here to eRivers KPI. And so the guiding questions that they would like us to discuss is, we've talked a little bit about things that we've noticed. Let's talk about whether we think that we're on track and which specific subgroup performance gaps we are seeing.
Well, the subgroups, I mean, we kind of talking about that, but
Yeah.
like there are Black students. That's a huge,
Mm-hmm.
and are academically disadvantaged. Really stand out.
Yep. And English language learners, but not with this KPI, not this metric anyway. I think we are more interested in looking at our Hispanic and English language learners' proficiency and growth measured by MAP and proficiency as measured by GMAS. We asked the question, those of us in the North Atlanta cluster, because we tend to have the highest number of Hispanic students. Why isn't that subgroup a part of the KPIs? And it's because that's not typical of all APS schools. So the district doesn't feel like it can use that as a metric at this time.
Yeah, you have some elementary schools that have 2, 5.
Yeah,
We used to be the highest. I don't think we hold that spot anymore.
I think we're close.
If not, we're number 2. Like,
Yeah.
we're,
I think we're
But yeah,
Is
close.
Garden Hill or Bolton,
I think Bolton might be, yeah.
the 3 of us always used to
yeah,
be in
kind
a
of trade off our
triangle.
groups of kids,
Who
yeah.
wants
Us,
to-
Bolton and Garden Hills?
Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah,
Because everywhere else, it's a maybe 10. I mean, 10 would be high in some places, even like
Yeah.
in high schools. And North Atlanta, it's, which makes sense. it would be.
so are there any questions about any of these categories or these metrics outside of the instructional core? So looking at those other areas, caring for every child, sparking student curiosity, strength as our team, responsibility is shared, and systems being efficient and effective. Any noticings or wonderings
Well,
about
we
in
do
any
have
of
the
those
list of
areas?
Comes to the student-staff relationships. I'm wondering where they get that measuring
Yeah, we
from.
talked about that
Yeah.
too. I was curious. Didn't we kind of talk about how that was measured before? And we weren't 100% sure.
Yeah, so many of those things are measured by the climate surveys that go out at the end of the year that teachers take. I think students take them and they go out to parents as well. Do y'all recall taking those surveys last year?
I think so.
Yeah. So, some of it is based on the response that they get, how many people are actually completing these surveys. You get certain points for the amount of family engagement as measured by how many people are completing the survey. The hard thing here is the survey has changed. So they don't have so these metrics aren't necessary. I think they were trying to pull out the metrics that are the same or closely related. And also the other thing that we've talked a whole lot about is sometimes the questions that they're using to gauge what the KPI is a question that needs to be unpacked. For instance, one of the questions is something like, do you have a best friend at work?
Yeah.
I think we all feel like we have friends at work, but I don't know that necessarily, right? So like teasing out, like, do you really mean a best friend, or do you just mean, do you have a work friend who is a good, right? Like,
Yeah.
and then there's one for students that is feeling comfortable going to every adult in the building.
That's no, most students they don't know every single.
That's right. That's right.
The little kid, no, the
That's right.
important adults that your teacher.
Yeah. So,
Yeah.
so trying to figure out if that's like when those surveys come out, do we need to do a better job of unpacking that so that families understand the question, the teachers understand the questions, and then the students understand the questions. Because when I read student staff relationships and only 50% of our students feel comfortable going to most or all adults, that the number looks poor, right? But in actuality, I think if the question were phrased differently, we would see a much larger score there.
Absolutely.
Yeah, what is that? How do we measure that? Staff
Remember
engagement.
there's questions for staff.
Oh, so that was another.
There'd be questions, there would be questions that we're getting at.
Yeah.
I think and it's
So
one I
these
can
are all-
remember, and it might not even go into this, but, are you getting, do you feel praised or given feedback or something in a timely manner or something like that? I don't know if it falls into that one,
Yep.
but.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's just, and we can pull that out and look very specifically at the survey and the questions and where eRiver scored, if that's something that you are interested in looking at.
I'd rather focus on getting our babies up to par.
Yeah.
And maybe just making sure the staff, like when we give out the survey, especially if we're doing it at school, making sure like we just, like you said, unpack the question. And
Yeah.
making sure we communicate that.
Absolutely.
I would
Absolutely.
recommend if the survey does have to go to the parents, we get a lot of things as
Mhm.
parents. We don't pay
Right.
attention to everything. So if you
Hmm.
highlight
This
how
affects
important
our-
it is, then I think
Yeah,
and
that's
communicate that, or maybe create an incentive like, hey, kids, you get a sticker or whatever when your parents submit their survey. And then the child will harass the parents to actually
And
complete
that
it.
works.
And then you'll probably get a higher turnout.
Yeah.
The next day.
Yeah, $5 worth of Wars Bucks. You get your $5 worth of Wars Bucks if your parents submit the survey, stuff like that. My child will definitely be on it. I would.
Yeah.
That's good.
For sure.
All right. If there are no other questions or comments regarding our KPIs, I'll move on to.
I still am curious, I know that you kind of, at least I might have asked this last time, like, at this level or age, why is there such disparity between the different ethnic groups, right? It's something in here, there's a difference and I think when it was broken out by grade, even at each grade, there's a difference, a
Mhm.
significant difference. And and I'll be very curious to kind of tease that out to understand why that may be.
Yeah. I mean, one of the things that I've worked on in my past life is culturally responsive practices, right? And there are things that I think have been a part of instructional practices for a lot of teachers that don't meet the needs of a more diverse population. Yet that is the dominant teaching practice that's being pointed out. So, I think to your point, that's one of the reasons in which Dr. Johnson wanted to change the strategic plan so that we are addressing going back to basics. He's really putting a focus this year on an explicit instruction. That doesn't mean that inquiry is going out the door, but that we're making sure that we're using inquiry and then backing it up with explicit instructions so that all students know exactly what they're supposed to be learning in that moment. What the learning target really is for that particular lesson. But there are other things that go along with culturally responsive practices. And I've purchased some books. I think some people have already come and gotten them. And so, as we get more into this work, we'll really be teasing out what those practices are, and lifting up what are high leverage practices specifically for Hispanic students, African American students, and our English language learners.
Sorry.
No, absolutely. Yeah. Thank you, Wendy. All right. So the next thing that they're asking us to do is align our mission, vision, and values. So again, we want to make sure that our mission and vision are aligned to Atlanta's. And when we look at our mission and vision, we need to decide whether we want to update that mission and vision, or whether whether we're feeling satisfied with our current mission and vision. So last year, this is what I was able to dig up in terms of eRiver's strategic plan. And up at the top is the current mission and vision. And I've put it here so that you can read it a little easier. So currently, eRiver's mission is by providing a rigorous inquiry-based education, the eRiver's family develops confident. Okay, Paige, thank you. Do you mind?
Sorry.
Thank you, Allison. Oh, it went away. Great. Develops confident, engaged learners, inspiring them to be respectful and compassionate citizens of the world. And then our vision to build acceptance and confidence through collaboration and inquiry where all students thrive in a respectful environment.
So the district is it's the one that's on this sheet here, right? And that's the updated one, or that was last year?
Oh, no, I'm sorry. On that sheet is last year's.
Last year.
Yeah, that was last year's.
District change.
The district has changed.
Modify to,
That's it.
okay, so
Are
it
those,
just,
so the black and red, that's Atlanta Public Schools new one?
Yes,
Just making, okay.
yes.
Well, we definitely were aligned last year.
So
But, this is a little broader.
my question is, are we still focusing on inquiry-based education? You mentioned just previously that we were doing more.
Yeah, so I mean, as an IB school, IB stresses inquiry as a means for students engaging, and grappling with concepts, having time to be self-reflective, and kind of come to some of their own conclusions. I think the different step here is that because I think that there have been teachers who then leave it up to the student to walk away with whatever they're taking from that particular activity, right? And so Atlanta now is getting really clear about that's not really what inquiry learning should be. You still have a responsibility to be very explicit, have a clear teaching point, have a clear learning target, and then making sure that you're assessing to ensure that students understand the concepts. There's a big emphasis on reteaching if students don't know. Or if you're finding that there's, and using small groups to individualize instruction, again, to make sure that students are being more successful.
Okay.
So as far as I know, there's been no word on signature programs, be it IB or STEAM, leaving.
Okay.
And I think that goes back to, that sixth bullet, in the strategic goals about sparking student curiosity.
So I think since E-Rivers is an IB school, the current mission that we have is very sufficient, especially with the redirection, and I guess this additional guidance that the district is providing for what the inquiry-based education would entail. I don't think we would need to talk about that in the
Yeah.
mission.
Yeah. I think too, it's important to note, and it's not, it doesn't stand out here with this mission and vision, but having heard Dr. Johnson speak a lot, I think that they tried to keep the mission very short. We are Atlanta's public school system, because one of his charges to us is to reduce the variability in instruction across the board, reduce the variability in the quality of instruction across the board. And so I think he's noticing, for instance, that different clusters have different personalities, have different needs, have different ways of doing things. And it's not that we shouldn't be responsive to those needs, but at the same time, we have to make sure that teacher to teacher, classroom to classroom, school to school, that there's the same level of quality. No matter what, whichever way you're delivering that instruction, that the quality is all the same.
It must be a whole lot with that narrative than just that.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
There's a lot of backup.
I've never seen a mission
Yeah.
quite like that before. Right.
Yeah.
And we do submit our mission and vision to that when IB comes every 5 years.
They check-
Yep.
Yeah. it
I don't think that if we
They
just
wouldn't-
said.
I don't think we could say that.
I'm
No.
not quite sure they,
No.
would take, well, I know they would.
How long ago was
Last
this
year.
mission? Oh,
Oh,
this is just last year's mission and vision?
It had looked similar probably for.
And there's a lot of like framed mission and visions in the office that don't look like they were just created last year.
No, like.
No, I think we revisit it
we
every year to make
revisited,
sure,
But
but
it always keeps
Similar
It's very
IB,
verbiage.
similar.
IB verbiage in it, like,
Mhm.
in order to make. Yeah,
Okay.
because we really never had from APS
Something that.
those type. That at all. It's always been teased out kind of like. Here,
Yeah.
and then we had the core values at one point. And they were there 8, 10, 12 that we were supposed to have memorized, but.
Core values of E-Rivers or core values of
core values
APS?
APS.
Yeah.
At least 8 of them or 10, we used to have a little card on them, so you
Uh-huh.
look at
Yeah, yeah.
it.
So
Saying,
by January, we're to confirm our mission and vision. And
Mhm.
so,
And look and come up with our 2030 goals.
and so the cluster, they come up with theirs in the same vein, or?
Yeah, so it's kind of happening all at the same time. So we had a principals meeting, for instance, just the North Atlanta cluster last week. And we began looking at our data and thinking about like our mission and vision really looks at like the leadership principles of this work.
Don't they have to be in line, or shouldn't they be in line?
They should all be in
Right, so,
line.
Yes. Here's how can really confirm the school before the cluster confirms that, because they should be a.
I think that's a great question. I think that's a great question. I'm new here.
Hmm.
So like this process, has felt a little wonky to me because there are things that are going on, at the central office area, at the cluster level, and at the school level that feels sometimes like we're putting the cart before the horse. But that's what we're being charged to do, is to go ahead now and align our mission and vision, not with the cluster, but with the school system. And I think some of that too could be because I think Dr. Johnson, just as he's doing with the comprehensive plan for facilities, I think that he is reallocating some resources and has plans to align schools a little bit differently than this cluster focus. For instance, like combining elementary schools, instead of just looking at those that feed into North Atlanta. So right now, all those clusters are named based on the high school that they feed into, which I think there's a lot of value in having that vertical alignment. But I think Dr. Johnson in his past roles in Tennessee, saw a lot of value in really creating more of, grade bands, working together.
Yeah.
So, are we proposing any changes? Or are we comfortable with our current mission and vision as it stands?
Only possible modification I would make to the vision is include the word empower, since they use it in the new district. But if we decide not to, I think we have strong enough vision either way.
Is building acceptance and confidence, is that kind of like it's
Empower.
empowerment? But I mean, I don't know, I'm just thinking.
I mean-
Incorporate the word empower where I'm sorry, but
Just
Somewhere in the
because-
vision.
Somewhere in the vision statement.
They use.
I think our mission statement is good, and it's a requirement of us being an IB school, especially the focus on citizens of the world. So that's a big thing, and being respectful and compassionate, and pretty much we highlight all the things that is required of IB. So I don't think we should change that. And I think it's a very lofty, an ideal mission for an elementary school to have. And just the vision, if we were trying to be more in line with what the district modified it as, but if not, I think they're both. Building acceptance and confidence is an empowerment. We're just not saying empower.
Yeah, so it's really interesting to me, having done strategic planning before, and working on mission and vision statements, to educate and empower Atlanta's students to shape the future. You wouldn't typically see that in a vision statement. You would typically see that in a mission statement.
Yeah.
It is our mission to educate and empower. Whereas the vision tends to be loftier, right? Like, to what end is the vision, right? So to create compassionate citizens of the world is more in line with the vision, because that's what you're seeing down the road. How are we doing that? Right now is more your mission. But
Yeah, that's a good point.
I also,
Mhm.
I think all of this encompasses what eRivers is about and what we do. So I am perfectly fine with keeping it as is, at least until we get a better idea, of
Yeah.
the direction that Atlanta is moving in.
And as a staff, we usually look at it every year.
Yeah.
That is not only a requirement, but it's just something good to do and to remind. And sometimes there's tweaks made.
I think it might be just prudent to stay where we are for this year and see and get a better grasp of the
Yeah.
additional changes.
Yep. I agree. All right, well, then we will move forward with confirming our 2030 goals. And so we're being charged with extending our continuous improvement plan to 2030 and identifying any additional goals. So going back to that strategic plan that, you have in hard copy that has all of the flow chart type of thing. This was the strategic plan, and from that, you created continuous improvement goals. So those continuous improvement goals were just meant to be one-year goals that help you on your way to your strategic plan. Looking at the goals on that you have in front of you, you'll notice that there aren't like a lot of numbers, right? So let me pull it back up here. So like over here on the right, it just says increased percentage of students scoring proficient this isn't a SMART goal. It's not specific, it's not measurable, et cetera, et cetera. So your continuous improvement goal gets a little bit more specific there. So last year, based on this exact meeting in the Go Teams archives, here are the 3 SMART goals that the Go Team were presented with. So notice what I've put in blue there. So the goal was to increase to 58% GMAS reading, and that is 3 through 5. And we scored 52.4%. So we did not meet our goal. Same with the second goal. So increase MAP math from a 46 to a 49, and we went down to 41% at the end of last year. Then this third goal is really about whole child. And again, it's not applicable because we don't have anything to compare that to because the survey changed. Any questions or comments about this information?
That's kind of to digest or to understand further the why, right?
Mhm.
So I see the number difference, but like why would I guess there would probably, or you would have other data points to assess to further and,
Yeah.
pinpoint. I mean, what attributed to that? Maybe
Right.
that's whether it went up or down.
Yeah. I mean, I think that there are some things that I've heard teachers and staff talk a little bit about. When you're looking at math, last year was was the rollout of the new standards last year. So a little bit of a disconnect there. Additionally, they were using a different math program. Endeavor was it Endeavor was being used prior to that? Is that not true? Well, right, so last year, Eureka, that's what I was thinking of. So many E words. So last year, the state rolled out new math standards. And along with those math standards, they created units and lessons that were up on their website that could be used. I think you'll hear Wendy talk about how while those lessons were decent, they were lacking in terms of fluency proficiency. And so Envision, i.e. Savas,
Yeah, socks as well.
was utilized as, I think, a supplemental resource. And that is what is being used this year for math. That's the program that has been rolled out by the district. I think that we are seeing that teachers aren't. I think sometimes what happens is teachers over rely on resources and under rely on what the actual standards are. And so we've been working this year already and helping teachers to really internalize those standards and turn them into clear learning targets and then create your lesson based on that. Instead of just picking up Savas and doing the lesson that Savas happens to have on that particular day, if that makes sense. Because there isn't one program that meets the needs of all of our learners.
We also really have to focus when they're saying going back to the basics. I'm not gonna say all, but a majority, a lot of our children don't even have addition as the base. They're sitting in 3rd grade and now they're asked to do multiplication. Well, if they can't add, multiplication is what, this adding out. And then they don't know their multiplication, and then they get 4th and 5th grade and they're expected to
Yeah.
things where they should know those. And some of us, that was drilled into our head, whether it was right way or not.
Yeah.
We still know them now,
Yeah.
49, 50 years old, like I can give.
And we know, looking from our data, and this is data that I presented last month, when you compare our grade levels, Our third grade across the board last year did poorly in ELA, in math, and science. They were the lowest performing of the 3 tested grade bands. So then you have to ask why. Is it just because of the instruction that was provided during their third grade year? I would argue not, because they've got pre-K, kindergarten, first and second grade, where they're building up those foundational skills. And like Nicole said, if they don't have those foundational skills, if there's been some, I don't know what the gap was, K1, 2, to really be able to answer that question third grade. But I do think that it's really important that when we look at third grade scores, we're not just attributing that to third grade teachers, that we're looking at the foundation that has been built up to that point. Yeah.
So at least a couple of random thoughts.
Yeah.
One, to the point that you made, Nicole, is understanding the track record from grade to grade, or those that started at E-Rivers to those that came in at later grades, right? And to see, is it a school issue? Is it a certain grade? Is it, I mean, and I guess getting down to the details of the numbers, just to say, what do the numbers show, right? I think, at this point, right, I mean, to try to memorialize all of those, I think this, I think that, and these are factors and so forth, and then really take the time for the go forward to try to understand what measurements can we adopt so that in future years so if we don't have, the trends now, you just take whatever those narratives are, book changes, I mean, curriculum change, I mean, just data, and then we be intentional about defining the metrics. So for future years, we can better see, what the data is telling us.
Right, right. I think one of the things that APS has struggled with is the metrics keep changing, right? The metrics keep changing, the resources that we're using keeps changing, our strategic plans keep changing. And that type of inconsistency is really frustrating for teachers, because it takes a lot of time to internalize these new standards, and even more time to get to know the resource that's being implemented. So right now we have a new ELA curriculum, and it is pretty unwieldy for our teachers. And we're hearing a lot of teachers really struggle with getting to understand not only the program and how it is rolled out, but how the assessment aligns, or in many cases doesn't align with the standards.
You could say that.
Right. So, I mean, that's a problem. If we are supposed to be teaching a standard, but we are told to use a particular assessment, and that assessment does not totally align with that standard, we're setting our kids up for failure. Right. So we're trying to empower our teachers to look first at the standard and not to rely on the resource. I think there has been an over-reliance on resources, is just my 3 months in assessment. We had teachers look at all of this data all the data that I shared at the last GO Team meeting, we shared at a faculty meeting or a pre-planning. We shared it with the staff. And then we asked the staff to really go through as a grade level team and come up with, what are the implications? Like, what are you noticing in this data? What are the implications of this data? And what are the things that each grade level needs to do? And I think that was really strong work. I don't know if it was the first time that teachers have looked at data in that way, but I want them to feel like they are professionals and they are the ones that can solve this problem. What are you going to do about it?
Um, yeah, my mind is just thinking I wonder if we could really partner with college and universities to really do data research and to provide summary. I mean, it's the staff that will have to be able to say, okay, but because it can be overwhelming, right? To
Oh,
say,
yeah,
okay,
completely.
Just to interpret the data and say this, but there are professionals who actually take data and bring it together and bring, hey, this and more clearly show what trends and analysis are so that the staff can say, okay, all right, so this is what it's saying, and then this is what the thought is to make certain changes.
So I am going to just pull up this. I have to change the presentation mode. Well, so I think that we have that data. That data exists. I mean, APS has an incredibly robust data team that dives deep at every single level. And that's some of the work that our teachers with our APs are also doing during their data dives. I don't have that information to present to you, but that is certainly something that down the road I'm happy to bring back. Let me get back on this then. All right. Okay, so because the hour is getting late, I just want to skip to. All right, actually, let me go back here. So this is just an example of the strategic plan, 2030 goals, and then how the continuous improvement goals feed into it. This is obviously not our school. This is just an example. And so what we have looked at in terms of what we feel like our strategic or our continuous improvement goals should be is looking at the percentage of all students scoring proficient or distinguished on the ELA milestones assessment. And you'll notice we're talking about an 8 percentage point gap. That is a larger gap. That is a larger gain than what is typically shot for in a continuous improvement plan. But because we didn't see gains last year and we went the opposite direction, it's important to us as a staff to make those things, make up that distance. And then targeting those specific subgroups, Black, ELL, and ED, because we feel like if we're targeting those subgroups, that will have a bigger impact in allowing us to grow those 8 percentage points in ELA. And then the same for math milestones, increasing from 48 to 56%. Again, it's an 8-point jump. And again, targeting those same 3 subgroups. We have not done work as a staff in looking at those whole child type metrics or teacher retention. And so that's something that we need to go back and look at. It could be that staff survey, it could be student safety. It could be family engagement. I think one of the things that without data to support, one of the things that we talk a lot about are creating ways to involve more of our English language learner families. As you know, currently, just in this political setting, we have parents that are afraid to come to school. And so trying to create creative ways to get them involved is something that informally we've already been talking about and working on. I don't know what that KPI would look like. And maybe it's not something that's captured by a KPI. Maybe that's something for us to determine how we're going to measure increasing that involvement. Our other subgroups tend to have really great family engagement. We see a lot of parents that are here for our conferences, for our assemblies, for our fall picnics, and things of that nature. It really seems to be our English language learning families, our Hispanic families that we'd like to see more family engagement from.
Well, yeah, I don't want to belabor, but have you seen absenteeism change in the last year significantly? Well, if you look at the data, because we're here last year, but
Yeah.
looking at the data, it has the absenteeism changed significantly.
I don't find that it's if you're asking specifically about our Hispanic students, that isn't a big problem. We don't see a lot of absenteeism from those families. We do have, a portion of it, our economically disadvantaged students, however, we do see more absenteeism there. I'll tell you though, so we were given some profile information that also included our attendance. And eRivers, in terms of the cluster, has one of the higher attendance rates. So, that's staff attendance that I'm looking at. But in looking at it overall, eRivers attendance was pretty good.
Their transient population is down. Based on like last year and previous years, not having as many in and out. Cause we did used to have very high.
Yeah.
People move in, people move in.
A lot of homeless.
Mhm.
We pull from. Yeah.
Yes.
I haven't seen as much of that this year. I mean, I could be speaking, but I haven't seen that.
I mean, we do have
So,
some homeless students, but I would say that for the size of the school, it's not a significant population. I mean, in fact, I think that my school last year that was 160 had a larger, had a higher number of homeless students than we do. Yeah,
police all the time,
yeah,
like.
yeah.
Which fun.
Just, you know.
So, how do you all feel about these two goals and the target subgroups?
I think we may want to just look into it a little bit more, like Mark had mentioned. I know we're supposed to have like a follow-up, I guess, just business meeting
Mhm.
for the team later in the month. So maybe
Yeah.
we could delve into that a little bit more, because while 8% would be ideal, that's still a very big jump in the school with a third of the school year already done.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Fair enough.
Definitely want the staff's input on, because I say, hey, no, it should be way up here and lofty. Yeah, right, get it all the way up to 80, but I mean, I'm not sure. I mean, I would want to do it in partnership.
Mm-hmm.
And so I don't know along the process if or how that can be done.
Mm-hmm.
We want it to be fair and reasonable. I want it to be stretch goals, right?
Right.
But I want it to be fair and have some reasonable, contemplation.
Yeah, yeah,
Would we be able
absolutely.
to have, hear feedback from, I guess, the staff meeting that you guys would have on their thoughts on the goals? Or is it more higher level director?
So I would not say that staff meeting focused on the specific goal, although that is a goal that is in everyone's, it's everyone's professional learning goal, the school-wide professional learning goal that was decided upon in the first week of school or something.
Okay.
So that is something, that is the direction that the staff has already been headed. But absolutely, I'm happy to show you just a summary of what we did in that last staff meeting. That's going to get more into the weeds of strategy, but I'm happy to bring that back to you all.
So once the goal is set, posted, it's presented,
Mm-hmm.
are there measurements throughout the year? Are there, I know incentives is not probably the best way to calculate, but are there any things that to make sure that we're aligned and we're going in the right
Yeah, so that's one of the reasons for the weekly data meetings that the grade levels have, is they are looking at they're looking at a plethora of data, from the formatives that they're given to the common unit assessments. They're looking at their benchmark data, like how they scored on MAP, the Mastery Connect, the benchmark units. That's all data that they're using as an indicator of progress to make sure that we're on that trajectory.
It's all collective, right? And so it's, everybody it's a collective effort, right?
Mhm.
Not probably, or I say, it probably wouldn't be prudent to be able to pick out a particular class or teacher or.
I mean, that is something that the assistant principals and I do. We are looking at individualized data of teachers, and we're pulling out very specific students to focus on as well. So that type of drill down is absolutely something that we do. And we even look at, like, we can take a particular assessment and drill down to a particular question and look at across the grade, how did students answer this particular question? Let's do an item analysis.
Everybody get it wrong.
Right. And that with our benchmark assessments, that we are seeing that, because it's a spiral curriculum, meaning that you've got until the end of the year, technically, to master that standard. But that's not how teachers teach. Teachers teach unit by unit, and they assess unit by unit to make progress towards mastery of all the standards by the end of the year, mastering some of these standards by October, mastering some by January, et cetera, et cetera. With the benchmark, because it spirals, benchmark is saying to us, oh, your first 3 units, you probably shouldn't expect any higher than a 60% on these end of unit assessments. I can't send home report cards that have 60% on them. And so again, that's something that we're trying to figure out and solve. Again, trying to move away from relying on the resource and instead looking really at the standards and how we are assessing those standards, how we are measuring student success on each of those standards.
And please know it's not this year, like my child's in 6th grade at Sutton, and they're having, like, the ELA teacher spoke to us about they're having. Oh, because they're losing benches. Yeah, and they're trying to work through it all as well, and they're seeing the same things, and we're seeing the scores where, middle school is a little different, they send home report cards.
And just imagine the angst of teachers in that situation, right? Because on the one hand, we're saying to them, hey guys, you got to do better. Look at these scores. These scores are not good. And so they've got that pressure on them, and they've got the pressure of trying to learn this new curriculum and learn these new standards. And so, we're trying to be a support, to be a guide, so that we don't have a bunch of people quitting on us. I mean, that's,
And I think that's key, you gotta give them support, show them how to do it.
absolutely.
I give the analogy, that's like telling my son clean up his room. Oh, what did you do? Do better. And unless I'm showing them.
Right, absolutely. They don't
do
know.
better.
They don't know.
Yeah.
And I think,
Like, okay.
I think one of the advantages that eRivers has that I don't think a lot of the other North Atlanta elementary schools have is the number of instructional lead people we have. So we've got 2 instructional coaches, we've got an IB coordinator, we've got an MTSS lead, we've got an ESOL gifted lead, we have an IB coordinator, we have a special ed lead teacher. I mean, those are 7 people just off the top who really don't have instructional duties with kids, Nicole really being the exception to that, right? So our jobs as an instructional leadership team is to do exactly that. Get into classrooms, model lessons, coach teachers, make sure that they understand and can deliver on these high leverage practices that we know research is clear moves the needle.
And our curriculum support team did create a plan to do that, but we're just You weren't able to see it yet, I don't think.
I did open it up. Marissa shared it with me. Yeah, yeah.
So we haven't started that process, but it's just a process, like we start going in to look at what's really happening with instructions on Wednesday. So we have to ramp up and quickly support them, but that's where our learning targets came out from all of this as well.
Got it.
It is right here. I was like, let me just.
Here's a lovely quote by Robert McCain. I don't know who Robert McCain is, but he must do some strategic planning. It is. Yeah, absolutely.
It's the method piece.
All right. And so that is all I have in terms of going over Atlanta's strategic planning process. So I'll turn it back to you, Amanda.
So did we have anything for the principal's report?
No, because this took up so much of the principal, I mean, really the meeting. I didn't feel, most principals are using that time to talk about the comprehensive facilities plan, and we're not being impacted by the comprehensive facilities plan.
Okay.
I will tell you that I know that there's going to be information coming down the pike about kind of some of that reorganization that I discussed, cluster versus grade level bands. And that will most likely be a principal's update at our next meeting.
Announcements. Does anyone have announcements?
I would say that our biggest announcement is, we are largely concerned about stamp benefits right now and how we are, because we do have a large economically disadvantaged population. So we're really trying to think strategically about how we can support families that are in need and are food insecure. There are going to be some things coming through in the Lion's Roar for those families. We've also started our backpack buddies. I think we have something like 60 students that will receive backpacks weekly. Well, they're not really backpacks, they're bags full of food. Does it,
I'm pretty sure.
right, but is it weekly?
Yeah.
It's just starting up, so I haven't seen how it
It's-
how it goes. Yeah.
If it's similar to what happened last.
Last year, it was
was
weekly on
weekly.
Fridays, but that was last year, and the year before, I think it was also, but I think, like you said, it was just rolled out.
Yeah, well, I know Guillermo just had me on Friday come and sign off on it, so I don't think it is.
Maxwell.
Okay, perfect.
I mean, hopefully that's not getting anybody. in
Well, and
trouble.
I don't know if that's officially through backpack
So-
buddies.
Yeah, it could have been something different, but I mean, it's good to see, right?
Yeah.
That there are things and people.
And then we will have our giving
You're
tree,
giving, I was gonna say that.
which it's been going on, I've been here 27 years. It's been going on that long, that should come out, yeah, it was coming out.
It did, right?
Okay,
Or maybe
Cause I met,
preliminary,
yeah.
it
there's
was
a
signups,
form
it was
they have
signups
sign
to
up This year.
to
Yeah.
be like a family that gets,
The opportunity to choose,
Yeah.
Wasn't
Yeah.
on that today.
Let me ask this question, and that is, we are given the option to have these meetings via Zoom or have hybrid, so that there is an in-person option. I don't know if we've got a good number of people that are absent today. We had 2 people join through Zoom. I don't know if that is a more convenient option for everybody. I'm here anyway, so it doesn't matter to me, but
I think hybrid is the best option because I
Okay.
think it's good for us to meet in person and to talk about things, and you're more connected when you are present than when you're over Zoom. So I think it just, but having Zoom allows for those who are unable to attend.
Yeah.
3:30 is kind of the middle of the workday.
one of the
It's a-
reasons that I ask is I just want to make sure that I am making enough copies for everybody. The last time I made way too many copies and we had more people on Zoom. And so so this time I limited it a little bit to 6. So I think we were just 1 over in this way, but yeah.
5 or 6 is
Yeah.
usually about how many
okay.
come in.
Okay,
person.
great.
Are you gonna mention the meeting later in November?
So we had just, did we discuss it at the last meeting?
I believe so, but I could have.
So one of the things that we've talked that not having done the strategic planning process in Atlanta Public Schools before, you brought up the fact that some of this seems to be in an interesting order, right? So at the time that the GO team presented how we were going to dive into strategic planning as a GO team, it seemed like that was going to be a lot of discussion and a good bit of work. So we talked about maybe creating a work session on November 16th, I think it was. So it would take place still during this time, but it would really, instead of it, and I don't know what the
17th.
the 17th. So I don't know what the procedures, how the procedures change for a work session versus this type of business meeting. And I'm also not sure how much y'all want to engage in that work. Or whether it is more like this, where really staff is doing this work and then presenting it to the GO team to sign off on. But if the GO team wants to engage in all of this, then we propose November 17th as a time to come and do that in a work session.
In addition to the regular meeting?
Well, we've already had, I mean, today is our regular November meeting, so our next meeting would be in December. But yes, in addition to either of those two meetings.
It was more to make sure that we're on track to meet our January 2026 goal of having all the goals done. But we understand that trying to have 2 meetings in December is likely impossible. So we would try to have one, since we have our meetings early in the month, we'd have a subsequent meeting before Thanksgiving and before the break. And then we would have, I think, our one meeting in December, and then we reconvene in January.
Yeah, so I mean, based on this, we
17th.
reviewed our data, we talked about our mission, vision, and purpose. We did not confirm really our 2030 goals. But then in the third business meeting, it's just identifying strategic objectives. That does not feel super weighty to me. So it may be that we can get all of that done in our December business meeting. So again, confirming 2030 goals and identifying strategic objectives. If we wanted to allow for really more conversation and discussion, and maybe look at more data or really dive deeper into that, then yes, I think the November 17th meeting would be appropriate.
Be open to it.
To having the meeting later in November, or just combining it for the
In
December
December.
meeting.
I do either.
I would propose that we just do it in December, and if we need to, we might have to make the meeting in January a little bit longer.
Okay.
That works.
So
Our next meeting would be what, December 3rd? Is it the 3rd?
It can be the first. Yep,
It's December 1st.
I think so. Cause that's the first Monday. Yeah, yes, I like that because that does make it easier. It's like knock it out.
Yeah, we know we have to do it early because everybody's concerned with the holiday.
Yes.
there is something else that we were sent by the GO team, something about the January meeting. So let me see if I can.
I think that has to be moved from, because we're
Yes.
on fall, whatever
Winter
holiday
break.
break that is. We're
Yeah.
on break until like the following week, so I think we're gonna move it to the middle of
Yeah,
January.
move January meeting to after January 19th.
Also like
And
one-
so we would have to then, I mean, we don't have enough for a quorum now with Wendy gone. Well, no, that's not true because we've got early on the call as well. That would need to be a motion. And it would need to be seconded to come up with an alternative date.
Is-
Was
it
that
would
what
have-
you were proposing, the 26th, January 26th?
Because isn't the 19th MLK?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So 1/26/26. Does that work for you?
Yeah.
Okay. So I propose that we move our January 5th meeting to January 26th.
Second that.
Ms. Early, could you come off of mute so that you can vote, please?
Yes.
Thank you. You heard the the motion and the second to move the January meeting from January 19th to January 26th?
Yes.
All in favor? Aye.
I,
Any against? Anybody abstain? Okay, motion passed. Okay, well, everyone, we have reached the end of our agenda. Is there any additional business at this time? Nope. May I have a motion to adjourn the meeting?
So move.
Second.
Second.
All in favor, raise your hand.
Aye.
Yay. All opposed, say nay, or raise your hand. Any abstentions? All right, meeting is adjourned at 5:07 PM.
Great. Thank you all.